Hi, this is Joe Rubinstein, and you're listening to the Captain America Comic Book Fans Podcast.
Greetings, Cap fans, and welcome to episode 119 of the Captain America Comic Book Fans Podcast. I'm your host, Rick Verbanis, and as always, I'm joined by the best gosh darn co-host out there. That is Mr. Bob Lucius. Oh, Bob, you may ask yourself, what is that beautiful house? You may ask yourself, where does that highway go to? And you may ask yourself, am I right? Am I wrong? And you may say to yourself, my God, what have I done?
Well, it's so appropriate, Rick, because we are, in fact, just a couple of talking heads.
It is so many different ways of being appropriate for today's episode, Bob. But yes, that is the song Once in a Lifetime. And, I could make some sort of corny joke about it being once in a lifetime, opportunity to sit here and talk with you, Bob, but I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, because we do it every week.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it is the Talking Heads. Now, Bob, when did that song come out?
Oh, Rick, you always challenge me with these, but I do remember that one, right? This had to have been in 1981 because that was in the heyday of my youth.
You would be so close, Bob. No, it came out in November of 1980. So it was playing. It was totally playing in 1981 on the air.
That album, right? Yeah. It was playing
but
for a good year and a half.
Yeah, but that was one of their earliest big hits.
Yeah.
And Talking Heads. And it did come out in November of 1980. Do you know what else came out in November of 1980, Bob?
Oh, I don't.
Really?
Yeah.
You know how the show works, right? We cover a few comics.
Yeah.
We pick a time frame.
True that. I did look up 1981 though, so I'm really prepared. Really.
Yeah. So today we're covering Captain America 253 and 254. Now they have a cover date, Bob, of January 1981 and February of 1981. But 252 has a release date of October 14th, 1980, and the other one, November 11th, 1980. So this song was coming out at the same time these comics were hitting the rack. So I thought that was appropriate. Now, you may also ask yourself, my God, what have I done? Am I right? Am I wrong? We're going to debate that, Bob, as Cap makes a serious decision, and it's a life or death decision in this story. And I think you and I are probably going to want to talk about that a little bit.
We probably will. Yeah. It's such a momentous thing that I don't want to spoil it for anybody.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the last thing that brings us all back together, Bob, who is the lead singer of the Talking Heads?
Gabriel Byrne.
No, it's an actor, I think. No.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah. David Byrne.
Oh, David Byrne.
David Byrne. And who's the artist for these two issues, Bob?
Yeah.
John Byrne.
Yeah. You're amazing.
Doesn't it all come back together?
Yeah. No, I want to ask you, were you a Talking Heads fan?
I was. I got more into it, I think, after the what album was it? Where it had And She Was, and Up All Night. Those like, was that mid 80s, like 1985, maybe?
Yeah, mid 80s, probably.
Yeah. I more got into them then, I think, but I liked them before that.
Okay.
Not you? I'm seeing your nose a little scrunched up there.
I was never a big fan of the Talking Heads. There was one song that I found amusing, and that was Psycho Killer.
Qu'est-ce que c'est?
Yeah, and I remember I used to, for a while I was humming that to myself, and it got me in trouble once because I was with my friend and his dad, and we were going to a doctor's appointment for his dad. And I was like in the back, just sort of like going through that song, humming it, singing it to myself. And we pull in, and his dad goes in, and we were waiting in the car, and I'm like, what is this all about anyway? And it was this psychiatrist. So I just felt really bad about it. like he thought I was like making fun of him or something. And that always kind of stuck with me.
Yeah, no, I bet. I mean, here you are humming along, Psycho Killer. Yeah, I mean, like Speaking in Tongues came out in 1983. That had Burning Down the House. So that was one of their, earliest hits as well. Then I think the one that I liked was Little Creatures, because that had And She Was, Stay Up Late, Road to Nowhere. Yeah, I had that album. I think I played the heck out of that album. And then I think the next year they came out with another album, True Stories. That was actually really good too, because that had, oh God, what did that have? Wild Wild Life. So anyway, our little talking heads.
Yep. Recap there.
Yeah. Birthdays coming up this week, Bob. There's a couple of Captain America creators that have birthdays this week. Keith Pollard. Now, Keith Pollard had done so many different Marvel comics and other as well, but he's really well known for Marvel in the 70s and early 80s. He actually did like a half a dozen covers for Cap in the late 70s. I like from that like 229 to 237 era. And some of those covers you would know as soon as you saw them. You're like, oh, that's instantly recognizable. So that was like when the what's his name, master director, grand director, right? When he's on the cover with the burning cross.
Yeah.
Right. The one where Sharon Carter supposedly died, she's there with the machine gun, pointing it at Cap. There's another one where he's on a motorcycle jumping over like a World War II Nazi camp.
Oh, that's a great cover.
Yeah, he's a fantastic artist. Anyway, Keith Pollard, he's celebrating a birthday. He's turning 73 on January 20th. So happy birthday, Keith. And another artist with a birthday on January 22nd, turning 53. That would be Alex Ross.
Wow, 53. He still has some time to get it together.
Maybe one day he'll make something of himself.
Yeah, that's right. I hope this for him.
Yeah. We have another really famous Captain America artist having a birthday next week. In fact, stay tuned to the end of this episode where we'll talk about what we're going to cover next week, which involves another birthday boy. And we'll also kind of reveal a few plans that we have for a few coming up episodes. I know we talked about during the anniversary episode, we were going to look at what's the next big story we're going to cover on a monthly basis, like an ongoing story. Well, we've got that picked out. So we'll probably talk about that at the end of this episode.
Ooh, I like that. We're going to reveal secret plans.
Indeed.
Excellent.
Yeah. But you know what, Bob, let's get to this story because it's going to take a while. It's only 2 issues, but it is a fully packed 2 issues. We have John Byrne with his layouts and Roger Stern with his dialogue. It's just jam packed. Like every one of these 22-page stories, it starts and ends with a big splash, but everything in between is 5 or 6 panels, and every single panel has word balloons. So this is going to take a little while. And Bob, I don't know what I was thinking. This story takes place in England. They have British accents.
They speak differently.
They do.
Yeah.
And I'm going to have to do British accents for multiple people. Bob, I have one British accent.
Both men and women.
They sound the same. I apologize right now to our friends in the UK. I'm going to not. I'm going to sound like a cartoon character doing a British voice is probably what's going to come across.
Yeah.
Apologize right now. But for those who are Roger Stern, John Byrne fans, I highly recommend you go back and listen to episode 7, which is where we covered Captain America 247 through 249. That was the Machine Smith story, which was really cool. Introduction to Bernie Rosenthal. So we covered that in episode 7. And then in episode 58, we covered 251 and 252, which was the Batroc and Mr. Hyde story. And Bob, here it is, episode 119. We're finally getting to another Stern Byrne. We kind of didn't want to, get through them too fast because there's not that many episodes or issues.
It's not a deep pool.
Yeah. So when we get done with these, I think we're only going to have like two issues left.
Right. I'm excited, man. I'm excited to jump into this, because there's this convergence here, right, between this story and the Invaders.
That's true. And I know you're a big Invaders fan.
Yeah, I'm a fan of those, so I'm antsy to get into this.
Right.
Revisit with some of my old friends.
Let's do that then. Let's start with the cover to issue 253, and let's talk about the creative team on this. We already mentioned the writer Roger Stern and the penciler John Byrne. They're also kind of like co-plotters, right? They both, plot these out, and then Stern does the dialogue and Byrne does the layout. So he did the pencils, and then inker is Joe Rubinstein, and Joe was a guest on the show. Highly recommend you guys check that out. He was on in episode episode 8 is when we had him
way
on.
Back then.
Yeah. So check out episode 8. Joe told some really interesting stories about, well, first of all, his career, but also working with John Byrne and what that was like, and some of the interesting stories behind the stories, shall we say. The colorist, Bob Sharon. And listen, while we're on a roll, might as well tell you, go listen to episode 5. We spoke with Bob Sharon, legendary colorist from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. We have letterer Jim Novak and editor Jim Salicrup. So on this cover to 253, I think a lot of people, if they saw this, would be instantly recognize this cover. It is a very eerie looking cover where it has the red, white, and blue logo. It has the John Byrne corner box where he's running. 50 cents will get you this. And it says Tomb of Blood. And we see Cap walking into, kind of looks like a barn almost the way it's laid out with the wood and the rafters. And he's coming from outside in the nighttime, and he has a flashlight, and the flashlight has a glow. And what is he looking at? He's looking at a casket, a wooden casket that is being opened, and you see the white paly arms from the inside pushing it open. It's a very eerie looking cover. Now, when we talked with Joe Rubinstein about this, he had an interesting story behind that. And I wanted him to do it justice. I don't want to ruin it, but he talked about the process of the style of how he, over top of John's pencils, what he did to make this have a sketchy, eerie look. So it was a good story there.
It's a stylistic approach that you don't often see. So it does stand out as a cover.
Indeed.
Particularly among Cap covers.
So we'll read on the opening splash page, we'll read the top because we haven't done that for this time period in a while. And it reads, 1940, as the world teetered on the brink of global war, frail Steve Rogers entered a secret laboratory and was transformed into the American super soldier. For 4 thrilling years, he battled the Axis powers until a freak stroke of fate threw him into suspended animation. When he awoke, he was a man decades out of his time. Since that fateful day, Steve Rogers has sought his destiny in this brave new world. Stan Lee presents Captain America. And what's the title to this one, Bob?
Should Old Acquaintance Be Forgot?
I was kind of hoping you would sing that. So this big splash page, again, very eerie. It's late at night. It's storming. The rain is coming down. There is a British constable holding a lantern. And there is another man, looks like a doctor, because he has a doctor's bag and he has an overcoat and hat. And they're in a town. And what we see that's all in the background. In the foreground, we see a woman's hand laying face up. And she's unconscious, apparently, or worse. The rains wash down on the small British village, not far from the north of London. They are not cleansing rains. Over here, Doctor. Looks like the bloody slasher struck again. Blast. That's the 3rd victim in less than a month. When will it all end? Let me get to the next page. And he's kneeling over top of her. That's the slasher's work, all right. The neck was broken, throat mutilated, and I doubt there's an ounce of blood left in her. Poor girl. At least the end must have come quickly. Gore, Doctor, to think that there's a bloody madman like the slasher running around free. What manner of a man kills an innocent woman and then drains off her blood like a slaughterhouse pig? A very sick one, Constable. Come, help me get the lass's body to my office. Then we best inform her ladyship of this. And how would you describe this man's face, Bob?
He has a, he's got a brown hair with gray highlights or white highlights. It's long and flowing. He's got an equally long and flowing beard and mustache. He's wearing round spectacles. And, he's an older gentleman, haggard, right? He's got a certain Dr. Faustus look to him.
A little bit.
A little bit, right? And he's wearing, of course, what are those hats called, Rick? Is there a
brim hats? I don't know.
I don't know. It's like an Indiana Jones hat, right? I guess common hat that you might see.
Yeah, and those spectacles that he has, they look very thick. Like he's got really bad eyesight.
Yes.
Minutes later, at a nearby manor house, and listen, if people aren't familiar with John Byrne's work for whatever reason, he's a master of detail. And look at the layout of this manor, right? I mean, the windows, the shrubbery, the bricks. I mean, such detail.
Right. I'm thinking, who washes those windows?
And who cuts the shrubbery?
Who cuts the shrubbery?
I want some shrubbery and a white picket fence. Bob was just waiting for that.
I was.
We're sorry about intruding at such a beastly hour, Lady Crichton, but you asked to be kept posted on this slasher business. That's quite all right, Constable. I had yet to retire for the evening, and I dare say that I doubt that I'll get any sleep this night. Something must be done before the slasher claims another victim. I still have some influence with the Scotland Yard, I'll bring Inspector Sweeney in on this right off. That's very good of you, your ladyship. How might I ask, is your father doing? Father as well as could be expected, Doctor. Thank you for asking. That medication you gave him seems to have eased his chest pains, though I'm afraid he's still as stubborn as ever. And then we see up on the second level, looking down in this grand living room, which is a high cathedral ceilings, is a man in a wheelchair, but he's in shadow, so we can't really quite see him. And how would you describe the lady?
Oh, she is. She appears, probably not a young woman, but not an old one. So
Middle age.
Middle age for sure. She's wearing a green house coat. She's blonde, blue eyes. Clearly an upper crust lady in her upper crust home. Lady Crichton. The name sounds familiar.
Yeah, and she, maybe I'm just, I wouldn't say she's pudgy, but she's,
she's put on that healthy middle.
Yeah, she's average for
right.
a middle-aged woman, right?
Yeah.
I just don't want people in their minds envisioning a typical, thin, lean comic book, female as artists tend to draw. No, John's doing a nice job drawing, a
real person.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then the old man in the wheelchair, his thoughts are, I've told them how this slasher is, but they ignore me. Can't they see that the devil has returned among us? He must be stopped, but there's not a man among them who is capable. No, the only man who could stop these murders is an ocean away. And then we cut to the New York harbor, and we see the city skyline. 6 time zones across the wide Atlantic lies New York City. It is a great city, a world city. But even the greatest cities have their share of human vermin. And we're looking inside the window of a liquor store. And I like that perspective that John did, right? Like we're outside from the street looking through the glass in the window. And what's happening, Bob?
Well, it appears that the proprietor is being robbed, Rick.
Come on. I know you got more. You got to have more dough than that. Hand it over. I have already emptied cash register. That is all I have. What more do you want from me? Blood? If they do, they won't get it. And there comes Cap. But just as Cap is coming, the man turns with his shotgun. With a desperate suddenness, the armed robber whirls and fires both barrels of his weapon at this bold figure who dashes through the doorway. But fast as the gunman is, his action is much too slow. It can't be. No man has dodged a shotgun blast at this range. Mister, I was dodging a lot worse than that, a lot closer than that, before you were born. There's no braggadocio in the voice of the colorfully clad man, only calm confidence as he takes out one opponent and turns to chase after the second. And so the other guy's running out the back alley behind the store. It's Captain America. I've heard about him most of my life, but I never actually thought he was for real. I got to get out of here. That fellow has a pretty good head start. Still, I could easily catch him before he reaches the end of the alley. But I don't have the time to waste right now. This way will be faster. And then we see the back of Cap as he's looking at the guy running away, and he flings just with his right arm, and he stretches back, and you just see him just fling the shield, and it ricochets, and then it ricochets, and it makes a noise. Clang, clang. Powered by nothing more than his good right arm, Captain America's shield ricochets down the alleyway, swiftly arching back in on the fleeing felon, and it hits him right in the gut. Oof. Blasted thing knocked the wind out of me, but I got it now, and he don't. And he reaches in and he pulls out his gun. Looks like a 45 Magnum, Bob.
45 Magnum, really?
That's what it looks like. Is it?
Just a 45, yeah.
Oh. See? Are they not one and the same?
No. Yeah. 45 Colt, which is just typically, it looks, what we had in the military back in the day until they replaced it with 9mm Berettas. That looks like what that is, just a 45.
Well, what's a Magnum then?
A Magnum is a larger round, and they have semi-automatic pistol magnums like Desert Eagle, but usually they're revolvers.
Oh, okay. So there's no such thing as a 45 Magnum?
No.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for correcting me.
Different round.
I've only been saying that for 45 years. No pun intended. Okay, man, hold it right there. I got a piece, see? And I'm not afraid to use it. And I love this panel. Cap's just walking up to him he has just walking up, right? Calm as be. And the man's pointing the pistol at him. I don't doubt that a bit, son, but I'm not afraid either. I didn't need my shield to avoid your buddy's shotgun blast, and I don't need it now. If you want to shoot me, go ahead and try. But remember this, a lot of men have tried. A lot of men who failed. Unless you feel like you want to fail more than you already have, I'd advise you to hand that thing over. For what seems to be an eternity, the trembling hoodlum stares up into the alert blue eyes of the costumed man. Feverishly, he weighs the odds. It should be impossible for the Avenger to keep from taking a bullet as close as he is. But this is Captain America he faces. And Captain America, it has been said, does the impossible. In the end, there's only one sane response. And he puts his head down and he hands him the gun. Here, take it. I think it would be best if you took this, sir, and he hands it to the shopkeeper. This man won't be giving you any more trouble. Oh boy, I be betting not. That one you hit, he still is out the cold. That was the most amazing thing I ever see. I called the police. They be here soon. Fine. Then you won't be needing me any longer. Just keep an eye on that one, okay? For the man who saves mine life, anything. God bless you, Captain. One fast flip up a fire escape, and Captain America is once again vaulting over the rooftops of the city. Normally, I would have waited around for the police to arrive, but this particular evening, I have a very important engagement, and I'll be late for it if I don't hurry. Ah, good. There's my portfolio, right where I left it. Hopefully, there won't be any new emergencies calling for Captain America's attention this evening. And in his portfolio is his change of clothes. Because it's about time that Steve Rogers enjoyed a night on the town. And he's got his shirt half on, half off when he says that.
How many times do you think somebody looked out and saw somebody butt naked on the roof of an apartment building in New York City in the middle of changing his clothes? No, it's another superhero.
Yep. Or you know what? It could be just another night in New York.
Just another night in New York. That's true.
A quick change of clothing, and freelance artist Steven Rogers slips back down into the city streets and heads for a certain Broadway theater where the lovely Bernadette Rosenthal awaits, more or less patiently. I should have known better than to expect Steve to be on time. Hello, Bernie. Sorry I'm late. Have you been waiting long? Well, not long enough for moss to grow on my north side, Steve. No, you're not all that late. I think we can still get to our seats before the curtain goes up. That's a relief. I was afraid we'd miss the opening number, and I've been looking forward to seeing this show again for some time. Oh, you've seen it before? Once, years ago. Though I doubt you'd believe me if I told you the year was 1943. And what's the show, Bob?
Oklahoma.
Oh, come on, Bob. Say it with feeling.
Oklahoma!
What the hell was that?
I don't know.
I thought you said you were a musical theater guy.
One that I do not particularly enjoy.
Oh,
Oklahoma. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh well, can't win them all.
Hours later, after an evening of Rogers and Hammerstein, Steve and Bernie return to their Brooklyn Heights apartment building. Now, I like that it ended with the word building, because it almost was like they returned to their Brooklyn Heights apartment. I'm like, wait, they don't live together. And then it said building. I was like, oh, yeah, that's right, because they're neighbors. Come on, admit it, Bernie. You kidded me about wanting to see an old fogies musical, but you really enjoyed Oklahoma, didn't you? All right, it was a kick, but I still think, Calcutta would have been more fun. Yes, well, I don't think I'm quite ready for that just yet. Cream with your coffee? Please. And she's just relaxing on the couch.
Have you seen Old Calcutta?
No, I have not.
I have not.
No. Unless my son's in it, I'm not going to see it.
Yeah. You know, everybody's nude.
I hope my son's not in
it. It was a very avant-garde musical that came out in the late 60s, early 70s.
Really?
It had short like vignettes written by, I think John Lennon wrote one. Samuel Beckett wrote one. There was like 5 or 6 or 7 different vignettes written by famous people, but all the performers were stark naked.
Huh.
So Steve, not quite ready for that. Yeah.
I now I know why Steve and I are so much alike. Didn't Hair have naked people too?
I think it had a little bit of nudity in that too.
Yeah. You know, Steve, you're a constant puzzle to me. You're bright, witty, but your tastes are so old-fashioned. Guilty as charged, Byrne. I'm afraid I'm just a incurable nostalgia buff. I'd rather listen to big bands than to rock, and rather watch an old Bogart film than most current movies. Well, I'll agree that some of the older movies are among the best. Do you remember Bogey and Lauren Bacall and To Have and Have Not? Sure. One of my favorites. I especially like the scene where Bacall said, "If you need me, Steve, just whistle. You know how to whistle, don't you?" And she leans into his arms. Mm-hmm. You just put your lips together and it's the phone. Hello? Who is this? Jarvis, sir. Sorry to call so late, but a cable just arrived for you. For Captain America, rather, at Avengers Mansion, and I think it could be important. You think? Yes, sir. It's apparently in some sort of code. All the cable says is, "The fat's in the fire, time to wave the flag discreetly, tally-ho," and it's signed Falsworth. I see. Thank you. Who's Jarvis?
Well, as this note says at the bottom of the panel, Rick, he is the butler to that world-famous super team, the Avengers.
That's true. Jarvis was right. It was in code, one I haven't heard since World War II. Steve, what was that all about? Byrne, something's come up. I have to go to England right away. It's personal business. I don't know how long I'll be gone. I know we talked about going out on an outing this weekend, but now, oh, that's all right, Steve. An old boyfriend of mine is due in town this weekend. I'll be fine. Well, I'd better leave you so you could pack. Have a good trip. And she heads out. If only I could have told her, explained how I am needed overseas. But the burden, the duty of being Captain America, is something I dare not share with her. Not yet. And then in the outer hall, Byrne, who's holding her coat and her boots, just puts her head in her hand. She's so disappointed with herself. Why did I lie to Steve like that? Was it just because he wouldn't confide in me his personal business? That boyfriend story was so childish. Oh, what's the matter with me? Hours later, a sleek Concorde jetliner streaks eastward over the night-darkened Atlantic at faster than the speed of sound. What's the sound effect for that one, Bob?
I never flew on a Concorde, but I will say that was my dad's dream.
Oh, yeah?
He really wanted to fly on the Concorde until it crashed, of course, and killed everyone aboard. And then he changed his mind. But that had been his long-standing, and they discontinued the service. That had been his long-standing dream.
Oh, well, I'm glad he didn't go.
I'm glad he skipped that one. Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, it was a trick question, Bob, because it is faster than the speed of sound.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, it still makes a sound. It doesn't hear it.
Oh, is that how that works?
Yeah.
I hadn't realized the airfare was so high. My ticket just about exhausted the cash reserves I built up in my savings account. I'd have borrowed an Avengers Quinjet, but the coded message in that cable said to come incognito. So it made more sense for Steve Rogers to use a commercial flight. It's been a long time since I was in England. I still remember the first visit, back in 1942, when London became the base of operations, for the team Winston Churchill called the Invaders, the Human Torch, the Submariner, and I formed the quorum of that group, along with the Torch's flaming psychic, Toro, and my own partner, Bucky. For 4 long years, we fought the bizarre Nazi menaces of Fortress Europa, and for most of the years, we were joined by 2 daring British heroes, the mighty Union Jack and lovely young Jacqueline Falsworth, who became the fleet-footed Spitfire. Who are some of these villains back then, Bob?
Oh, some great ones, right, Rick? Masterman, the Blue Bullet, the Face, Agent Axis, Warrior Woman, the Scarlet Scarab, and of course the aptly named Asbestos Lady.
What the hell is asbestos lady? What does she live in the attic? Like what
She may have, you know what? She may have been able to ward off Human Torch and Toro, but not lung cancer.
Oh gosh. But
mesothelioma. Yeah.
I gotta say, the Blue Bullet was one of the stupidest villains. Even as a kid, I had an Invaders comic, and I had one that had the Blue Bullet in it, and I was just like, there's just a blue bullet like going around in a house chasing. Like, how does it go around the corners? Like, I don't understand.
Yeah. Yeah. He's no one-armed Tiger Man.
That's true.
Yeah.
That was an armless Tiger Man.
One arm, not the armless Tiger Man. Is it one-armed or?
It was armless.
Was he armless?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. He had no arms, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You're right. Yeah. You're right again, Rick.
Mm-hmm. And I just want to say, I would have an editor's note at the bottom of our caption. For more armless Tiger Man, see episodes 111 and 112 as Rick and Bob review Cap and Black Panther, Flags of Our Fathers.
Indeed. Can't get enough armless Tiger Man.
And in the end, our efforts helped bring about the downfall of the madman Hitler and his twisted Third Reich. Sir, can you please fasten your seatbelt? We'll be landing soon. Sir? Oh, certainly. Pardon me. I guess I was daydreaming. Sometimes it all seems like a dream. Shortly at London's Heathrow Airport. Now for the hard part, getting through customs. Because, he's got that large attaché case, which has his shield and a few other things. I'd rather not have the inspector throw open my suitcase and let everyone see my shield inside. Until I know the nature of the emergency that the cable had hinted at, it would be best if Captain America kept a low profile. Next. I'm in a bit of a hurry. Sure, mate. Everybody is. Let's see your passport. Now, do you have anything to declare? And he's showing him inside his passport the Avengers priority clearance and that he's Captain America. Right you are, sir. Everything's in order. Have a good stay, sir. Next. Let's keep it moving. One long cab ride later. That's a cool looking taxi.
It's
It's like a Rolls Royce looking taxi, doesn't it?
It's one of those, I guess, old, looking British taxis, Rick.
Well,
come on.
It's not yellow. It's black, and it looks like a Rolls Royce the way the front of that car is. I don't know. So he's at the gate, and he's going into the garden area. Falsworth Manor. It hasn't changed a bit in all these years. I still recall the early strategy sessions the Invaders held here, when this was our temporary headquarters. I wonder what sort of emergency could have arisen that the Falsworths couldn't handle themselves. Well, whatever it is, I'll soon find out. And he comes up behind a lady crouching over some garden area. Pardon me, ma'am, but is the Lord of the Manor about? He is, but I doubt that. Steve Rogers. Jacqueline? Good heavens, it is you. You've come back to us at last. Jackie, you little spitfire. It's been a long time. Too long. Here, let me look at you. Oh, it's like a miracle. You haven't aged a day since the war. Just the result of an unplanned accident, milady. I spent a few decades on ice, literally. The science boys called it suspended animation. Yes, I know. I read about it in the Times. And then she turns away from him very suddenly. Jackie, is something wrong? No, it's just that I'm a mess. Let me clean up and then we'll talk. I was younger than he was, and now I'm older. So much older. And let's think about that, Bob, right? It's 1981.
Right.
It's been almost 40 years.
Right.
Since they've seen each other.
Yeah.
So is she 60?
I'm sure she's at least 60. She was in her early 20s, right? When she was Spitfire. She was young, but she was probably in her early 20s.
Okay. Well, yeah. But even, let's say she was even 18, right?
Let's say. Yeah.
Then that would put her at 59. I mean, so she's around that 60 range. Okay.
Right.
All right.
Yeah. It's interesting because in that he said he had been on ice for a few decades. So even here we see the sliding time scale working a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good catch. Soon in the mansion's solarium. Bob, you have a solarium at your house, don't you?
I have one. Yeah, it's right out back.
Yeah. Yeah, because you live in Florida.
Right next to the planetarium.
No, you do, don't you? Don't you have a solarium?
By the crematorium, huh? Yeah.
Don't you have it?
We have a lanai. It's just a screened in patio with pool. We don't call it so I think solarium has glass.
Oh, okay.
And this ours is just screened. So.
All right. Well,
yeah.
You're in America. So, we do it differently here.
Yeah. Right. You'd have to have a solarium up further north, right? Because
it gets cooler.
When it gets cooler, otherwise it'd be freaking hot.
Oh, doesn't it get hot with the screens though? Because it's hot outside.
It does get hot, but like the
ceiling
sun,
fans,
the glass would like magnify the
trap
it. When
you'd be like it'd be like a sauna.
Yeah, like a greenhouse.
That's true. Anyway, after I came off the ice, my memory was a bit addled for a while. There were blank spaces in my past which I couldn't account for. Why, in my first outing with the Avengers, I didn't even recognize the Submariner. It was just recently that my full memory returned. That's why I never wrote or called. No need to apologize, Steve. I quite understand. Things were here have, of course, changed over the years. Now, he's referring to when he didn't recognize Submariner. That was in Avengers 4, right? So when he and the Avengers fought the Submariner, he didn't recognize him. I mean, we've talked about that before.
Right. Yeah, neither of them recognized each other. Yeah.
Yeah. But in Cap 247, which was in the beginning of the John Byrne, Roger Stern, he talked about having his memory return. Because you recall, that was when he was looking at his footlocker and he could start remembering things.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right. So, yeah.
My powers of Spitfire gradually faded with time, and my brother Brian, the second Union Jack, died in an auto accident in 1953. I married Lord Crichton in 56. I was widowed just 3 years ago. I'm sorry. My period of mourning has passed, Steve. Besides, I do have a fine young son, Kenneth, who's away at school. I moved back here a year ago to look after father. Oh, but you haven't told me what brings you here. Why, I came in answer to your cable for help. Cable? I sent no cable. No, I sent the cable. Lord Falsworth. I knew you'd come, Stephen. I always could count on you. Good to see you, sir. I hadn't that is, surprised to see me among the living? Ha! We Falsworths are a hearty breed. But there is business at hand. Deadly business. There's been a series of murders in the area recently. The police are calling the murderer the Slasher, but I believe that he's our old wartime foe, Baron Blood. Father, that's ridiculous. Baron Blood is dead. No, he is undead, Jacqueline. A vampire, as well you should recall. And each of the so-called Slasher's victims have been drained of their blood. I told you before, the constable thinks the Slasher's some lunatic, one who perhaps thinks he's a vampire. At any rate, he's not Baron Blood. I had Scotland Yard check, and Blood's remains are still entombed in the Tower of London, where they have been since the war. Poppycock! Blood is a master of trickery. He's fooled them somehow. I can feel it in my bones. I tried to convince the Crown to permanently put an end to Baron Blood years ago, but no, they wouldn't listen. There's only one way to totally destroy a vampire: decapitation. And then the head and body must be burnt separately. Please, sir, it's time for your medicine. Oh, very well, Hutchkins. Stephen, I'm an old man, but you... I understand, sir. I'll check things out for you. Bless you, son. I'm sorry, Steve. I'm afraid that father has become a bit senile. Don't say that, Jackie. Don't ever say that. He may be old and enfeebled, but I saw the look in those eyes. His mind is still as sharp and clear as the days when he was Union Jack. And if he thinks Baron Blood is behind these murders, then Captain America is going to investigate. I owe him that much. A short time later, in the offices of the village doctor. So we go back to the doctor we saw in the very beginning. You'll be fine, Jenny. Just keep taking that iron supplement, and you'll be bright and full of energy in no time. Yes, doctor. And the constable's with Captain America. Begging your pardon, Dr. Cromwell, but there's a gentleman here who'd like to ask you a few questions. Captain America, I say, this is an honor, sir. I saw you in action during the war, I did. I'm sorry I can't say I recognize you, Doctor, but I had a feeling we'd met before. I understand that you've inspected the bodies of the slasher's victims. Yes, I double as the local coroner. This slasher business is a dirty one. Murder and mutilation. Obviously the work of a sick mind. Obviously. But isn't there a possibility they could also be the work of a vampire? What? How dare you mention such superstitious claptrap in my presence? Get out! Out of my offices! I don't care who you are. I'll not have such lunacy propounded here. But out! So he and the constable leave. And I just want to go back to a few panels when they introduce. And he says, I'm sorry I can't say I recognize you, Doctor, but I have a feeling we've met before. Remember when we talked about that? Yeah. That Steve has the uncanny ability due to the super soldier serum. He has the, what type of memory do they call that?
It's like a photographic memory, right? That's not the term you're thinking of, I don't think. That's
no, it's like it was an indacted or something. I can't.
Yeah.
Something
didactive.
Yeah. But we talked about that, how he has the ability to remember each and every one of the soldiers that he served with, who he's met. And that's why there are times where he'll come across a soldier and someone will say, oh, I saw you. And he goes, oh yeah, you're Private Benjamin or whatever. And
Kelly. Yeah.
But he doesn't recognize him.
Yeah.
But he does have a feeling they met before. A little Cap's intuition, maybe, perhaps.
Interesting.
So the constable is walking Cap out. Sorry about that, Captain. I should have warned you that doctor is sensitive on the subject of vampires. You probably noticed them scars on his face. Well, he got him a few years back when he was brand new to the village. There was a vampire scare in these parts back then. Some claimed that Dracula himself was in the land. Well, sir, some of the locals thought they trapped a vampire in the doctor's cottage, so they torched the place. Doc Cromwell arrived to see his house go up in flames. The townsfolk hadn't known his daughter was inside. He rushed in to save her, but it was too late for the girl. He was pretty badly burned as well. He grew that beard to cover the worst of the scars. I can understand the doctor's reaction, but vampires do exist. My battles with Baron Blood during the war proved that to me all too well. If Dr. Cromwell won't help me, I'll just have to look elsewhere. In one form or another, the castle-like structure known as the Tower of London has stood here on the banks of the Thames for some 900 years. Much history is tied up in the dark passageways of the tower, and it is rumored that the ghost of Anne Boleyn, second wife of King Henry VIII, often walks the tower halls. But it is no ghost who roams these corridors this afternoon. No, this is a living legend. I appreciate Scotland Yard being so cooperative, Inspector Sweeney. You were saying that Baron Blood's body has lain in state here all these years? That's correct, sir. He was Lord Falworth's brother, after all, and the legal question of how to dispose of a member of nobility, even if he was, well, undead, was never satisfactorily decided. Still, and all, we've taken every possible precaution. Blood's tomb here is festooned with garlic, religious icons, all things abhorrent to vampires. Unlock the vault, Reg. Yes, sir, Inspector. There, Captain. Blood's beer, sealed and untouched all these decades. So it appears, but there's only one way to be sure. Right you are. With careful, deliberate movements, Inspector Sweeney loosens a series of clamps that hold on the heavy iron lid. And then, what do we see, Bob?
Well, it appears to be Baron Blood lying in a casket on a bed of garlic with a stake through his heart.
And his face is just a skeleton.
It is the skeletal remains, yeah.
There he is, Captain. Not a pretty sight, I'll grant you. But as you can see, there's no way Baron Blood could be the slasher. Yeah? You're wrong, Inspector. Dead wrong. Good Lord, man. Have you taken leave of your senses? Put that stake back or the vampire will revive. We've nothing to fear from this body, Inspector. This isn't a vampire. This isn't even the skeleton of a man. Soon, in the coroner's lab in New Scotland Yard, he's right, Inspector. That body of a 20-year-old woman. Been dead about 12 years, I'd say. No telling how long she's been in that tower. Incredible. I knew that body didn't look right. I've seen many, too many, in combat. But this means that Baron Blood may have been loose for a decade or more. It doesn't mean that he's a slasher, but he's a very good suspect. Yeah, look, like I owe you and Lord Falworth an apology, Cap. I didn't know how this could have happened, but I promise you we'll launch an immediate investigation. Good. You can count on me for assistant inspector. If you need me, I'll be staying at Falworth Manor. And so, as night falls, if Baron Blood is the slasher character, then I'm sure he'll strike before too long. Of course, Blood could have left for some remote corner of the world, but I doubt that very much. He's too tied to this area. Entering the mansion, Cap finds Jacqueline Falworth Crichton in the midst of a family disagreement. If you were going to bring your friend home for the holidays, you might have at least given me some warning. Don't hand me that, Mother. It's not the lack of warning that annoys you. You just don't like me palling around with Joey. You think he's too low class. Well, if you must be so blunt. Pardon me. I hope I'm not interrupting anything. We'll discuss this later, Kenneth. Your art school chum can stay for the time being. Do come in, Cap. I want you to meet my son, Kenneth Crichton. My pleasure, sir. Mom's always spoken very highly of you. Ken? Yeah, and I'm Joe Chapman. Ken and me are the best mates at the art school, you know. Court, I never thought I'd be shaking hands with Captain America. Me Uncle Oster told me yarns about you. You're right in good shape for an old sod. Pleased to meet you, Joey. You seem to be in fairly good shape yourself. That's some grip you have. Yeah, Ken and me are both on a wrestling team. Care to go a few rounds? I hope you boys can delay your match until I have a chance to speak with the captain. Well, Cap, what did you learn? Nothing for certain about the identity of the slasher, Lord Falworth. But you were right. Baron Blood is on the loose. I knew it. I knew it. He has to be the slasher. No one will be safe from my accursed demon brother until he is finally eliminated for all time. Father, please, remember your heart. Cap, are you certain? Very certain, Jackie. Now, if you'll excuse us, I think I should confer with the lordship for a while, in private. Not mean to be disrespectful, Kenny, but is your grandpapa all there? He don't sound like it. I don't know, Joey, but it hurts to see him like this. Shortly in the library. Look at that library, Bob. You want a library like that at home?
Oh my God, Rick. It just seems a lot.
It does.
Yeah. It's intimidating. Like, where do you start, you know?
You don't.
Yeah.
You just look at
it. It's wallpaper.
it. It really is. That's how I feel sometimes about my comic book collection.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Like, wow, that's a lot. They all think I'm mad. I know, sir. Stephen, Bone Blood robbed me of the use of my legs, and time has sapped my strength and my health. Sometimes I feel like my mind is all that's left me. Tell me, honestly, am I losing that too? No, Lord Falsworth, you're as sane as any man. We can't be sure that Baron Blood is the slasher, but I agree that he probably is. These village murders may be some sort of mad warning. Whatever the case, I'm willing to stay here until we get to the bottom of this. And I promise you, we will find Baron Blood, and we will stop him. When I hear you talk like that, Cap, it takes me back to the war. Those were horrible days, to be sure, but dark days. But somehow, the world seemed more innocent then, more hopeful. Thank you for coming in answer to my cable, Steve. Thank you. By the time the moon is full in the skies, Falsworth Manor has grown dark, a great stony fortress amid the rolling British countryside. But along one cornice of the structure skulks a twisted gargoyle-like form, a figure not of stone and mortar, but of unliving flesh and bone. This is Baron Blood. And he's in costume that we would recognize from World War II, Bob.
He sure is, Rick. It's an odd costume, right? I mean, it's like a bright, almost fuchsia, purplish, leotard. Would you call it that? What do you call those skin tight bodysuit? I guess, right? With sort of a light purple edging on the outside of the legs and the arms. And then he's got they look like pterodactyl wings almost, right? These ridged wings that allow him to fly, that are on the outside of his arms. And then he's got this mask. It's hard to describe that mask, but it has a certain features of like a bat, right? With long ears that you would expect on a bat.
Yeah, pointing up to the sky.
Yeah.
The manor has grown silent. Now shall I strike? Creeping over the stonework of the maze, the vampire skitters down the side of the building, head first, like some huge, hideous spider, until he comes to an open window. Then he pauses, an awful, barely audible laugh rasping deep in his throat. Just as I thought, Captain America has been given the same guest room he used during World War II. The Falsworths and their penchant for sentimentality have doomed the Yankee. Slowly, the grotesque figure slides into the room, inching ever closer to his intended target. And we see Steve lying in the bed with his back turned to the window, and this moonlight casts a shadow on the room across the bed. One swift snap of the neck, and Captain America will no longer be a problem for anyone. But just then, Cap has his shield underneath the blanket, and he takes it and smacks him hard into the head. I'm not going to be that easy a victim, Blood. Your hatred for your former family was always your weak spot, Blood. Once I learned that you were free, I knew that you'd have to come back here sooner or later, and I hoped that you'd find me more of a challenging target than your aged brother or Jackie. Looks like I was right. Baron Blood's only answer is a low, feral snarl and a swift, sudden, devastating blow that hits Cap and smacks him through the bedroom door out into the hallway and makes a loud noise, Bob.
Crash!
I was careless. I have to keep reminding myself that Blood's strength is supernatural in nature, that he's so much stronger than he looks. You have sealed your fate, Captain. I have planned to merely end your miserable life, but now you shall join me in undeath. I doubt that. And he takes from behind his shield that was held in the strap. What is that?
It's a string of garlic.
I prepared for you, Baron. This loop of garlic should be enough to slow down the mightiest vampire. Ah! Curse you! Curse this dreaded herb, and its touch is repugnant to me as its scent. You've got a lot of gall talking about repugnance, Blood. What about those slasher murders? Those 3 innocent women? Don't you have any conscience at all? Conscience is for lesser beings. And he dissolves. Huh? He's gone, turned into mist. But then he pops up right behind him. Of course, fool. Is that not within the power of the undead? And he strikes Cap in the back of the head. But Cap turns and kicks him. I don't care what you turn yourself into, Blood. I'll still find a way to stop you. You're a bold man, Captain, but are you only a man, whereas I am the scion of Dracula, the lord of vampires. Mine is the power to control the fog, the wolf, and the vermin of the earth. Even now, my army of the night is surrounding Falsworth Manor. The longer we battle, the closer they creep towards my dear damned brother and his family. Indeed, at that moment, in another wing of the manor. Mother, what on earth is that bloody racket? I don't know, but it seems to be coming from the direction of your grandfather's room. But between Jacqueline and the awful noise, a more silent struggle rages between 2 old foes. And Blood has Cap on the floor on his back. You cannot long resist the full strength of the vampire. He's right, yet for all the Blood's power, he can still be taken by surprise. And with my knowledge of leverage, I can use his strength against him. And he flips him out of the hallway into the bedroom of Lord Falsworth. With a split-second timing that defies belief, Cat suddenly shifts his weight, propelling Baron Blood over him and into the next room. What? Baron Blood, here? Leaping to his feet, Baron Blood ignores the feeble gasp of his mortal brother, turning instead towards Captain America, his eyes ablaze in the semi-darkness. I tire of this battle, Captain. There is no need for me to waste my time in useless combat when my hypnotic powers can halt you in your tracks. And he does. And then we cut to the last page of this issue, and it's a huge splash of a bust shot of Cap standing in a trance with Baron Blood, when his arms wrapped around his neck, his throat, and top of his head, and his teeth coming closer to his neck. And he says, yes, this is much better. You shall stand here enthralled and helpless, and then you shall die. And 3 days hence, you shall arise to your eternal damnation as a vampire. Next issue, the fateful conclusion, Blood on the Moors. All right, so Bob, on this next issue, 254, it has a cover date of February 1981, but it had a release date of November 11th, 1980. And the creators are the same, Stern, Byrne, Rubinstein, Sharon Novak, and Jim Salicrup. How would you describe the cover here, Bob?
It's a wonderful cover, Rick, right? I mean, in the background, we see the windows of Falsworth Manor. And but in the foreground, what do we see? We see Cap, and he's basically 3/4 on the ground, right? He's on his knee with his right forearm against the ground, and above him is Baron Blood leaping down on him with blood his left hand and his right hand, his left hand around Cap's throat, his right hand coming down for the fatal strike. And Cap's trying to push him off with the shield, but you could tell that he's not on the winning end of this battle. And in the background, we see Lord Falsworth, the elderly Lord Falsworth, rising from his wheelchair, but he's wearing the Union Jack uniform.
Indeed. Yeah, it's a really cool cover. And the title to this one, Bob?
Blood on the Moors.
What's a moor?
It's a good question. I don't know what the hell a moor is. Is it a foggy, like low-lying area? I don't know. Gosh, I've heard that term so much and seen it in movies, Like,
yeah. Yeah, and it's always something to do with England, right?
Yeah, it's always foggy on the moors.
That's true. It says here it's a tract of open, uncultivated upland.
Huh.
Heath.
What the hell's a heath?
Well, he's one of our moderators in the Facebook group.
It's a candy bar.
Yes.
Yeah.
Of course, I see anything that says a tract of land, and I just want to, she's got huge tracts of land. 5 points to anyone in the Facebook group who can quote what I just said, what that's from. Right, Bob?
I don't. I don't know
No?
that one. No, I don't know that one.
Oh, should I just give it away then? Yeah, no one's gonna guess. That's from Monty Python's Quest for the Holy Grail. When they're where the prince is up in the tower and he's about to get married, and he's the father keep pushing him because he wants them to marry him, so he gets, anyway. So she's a big woman, right?
Yeah.
And he goes, I don't want to marry her. What's wrong with her? She's beautiful. She's rich, and she's got huge. And he puts his hands out in front of his chest. Huge tracts of land.
Oh, I'm gonna have to take a good watch that one this weekend. I think
with Bobby.
I think it's time. I think the time has come.
Absolutely. So, Blood on the Moors is the name of this story. We should probably get to it now. So this is a full splash page, and again we have Cap and Trance left off from right where we ended last issue, except it's the full body, so we see the people behind, because again we're in Lord Falsworth's bedroom, and he is the elderly man in his bed, and then we have his daughter and his grandson that are coming in through the hallway, and they are all looking in horror as Byrne Blood is about to bite Captain's neck. Blah blah blah. Captain America stands stock still, entranced by the irresistible, mesmerizing power of Byrne Blood, who crawls over his victim, ready to sink fangs into the hero and turn the living legend into an undead monster. At the door of the chamber, Lady Jacqueline Falsworth Crichton and her son, Kenneth, stand transfixed by the horrifying tableau. While old, enfeebled Lord Falsworth, who was once the British hero known as Union Jack, struggles to sit up in his bed, unable to save his old friend. And he is being referred to as old and enfeebled. Like, I have never seen the word enfeebled so much as I have in this story.
I know. I'm starting to worry now that people are using that to describe me.
Yeah.
And I just hadn't heard it before.
Now you have. Byrne Blood eagerly closes in on Cap's throat, his fetid breath assaulting the hero's nostrils as Cap desperately tries to break free of the vampire's control. A million questions race through the Avenger's mind. How did he come to this predicament? What is he doing here in England? As if wading through a thick fog, the answers come to mind. It had all begun a mere 24 hours ago with the discovery of a murder victim, a young woman drained of blood. She had not been the first to die in such a manner. Learning of the murder, Lord Falsworth sent a special coded message requesting assistance to Captain America in care of Avengers Mansion. And though the message was relayed by phone to Cap's alter ego, Steve Rogers, at an inopportune moment, Cap immediately left for England. There he found that the old lord believed the murderer to be the wartime foe, Byrne Blood. Falsworth's family, however, thought the old man to be senile. No one believed him, least of all Ken's school chum, Joey Chapman. But as night fell, Byrne Blood did indeed strike at Falsworth Manor itself. Stealthily, the vampire entered Cap's room, prepared to end the Avenger's life with a quick twist of the neck. But Cap was prepared for such an attack and immediately launched an all-out offensive against the vampire until the Baron managed to enthrall his enemy. And now the vampire's fangs are but inches away from Captain America's jugular vein. Nothing can save him now. And then he takes a bite, Bob.
Kronk!
Which wakes Cap up from the trance, but is it too late? Nothing, that is, except a thin layer of chainmail which covers his neck. And then you see Baron Blood grasp at his mouth in pain. Pain clearing my head. Thank heaven for small favors. Blast you and your cursed protective uniform. If I can't bite your neck, at least I can still break it. Threats are one thing, Baron. Results are something else. Cap, watch out. No need to worry, Ken. It doesn't matter how strong, how powerful an opponent is. Even the mightiest beings can be defeated with the proper application of leverage. I swear, does he always have to bring that up? I mean, it's getting old. You don't have to give us a dissertation on leverage, but it seems like he does it all the time.
And here's the fulcrum.
You'll not make mock of me with your acrobatic tricks, Captain. Sooner or later, I'll get you. It's just a matter of time. And he throws a chair at him. You can think again, you bloody monster. You'll not harm anyone in this household. And Ken runs at him with a
lamp.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was trying to think of what kind of lamp that is. It's a floor lamp, right? It's a long lamp. Yeah. He's holding it like a bat. No pun intended. No, Ken. Let me handle Baron Blood. You have no idea how deadly he could be. And by the way, did you notice in the mirror behind we see Cap, but we don't see Baron Blood's reflection?
That's right. That's right.
Did you notice that?
I did not.
You're welcome.
But I wasn't going to bring it up, though, because, there's a lot of reflections in this storyline.
Figurative, Bob?
No. Do you remember the reflection of Cap in the cash register?
Yes.
Right? And that was an excellent use of mirrors. So I think it's happened a few times in the story.
Well, at this point, though, they're pointing out to show that there's no vampire.
Well, what I'm saying is, that's just a level of detail. That
I thought you were talking about reflecting on the story.
Yes. I'll be doing that later.
I could be pretty dangerous myself, Cap. Insolent whelp. You cannot hope to strike one who has the speed of a vampire true. Bah, you are barely worthy of my attention. But yet he grabs his throat. And yet the blood of the Falsworths flow in your veins, and all Falsworth blood must be spilled before I am through. Kenneth, no! Let the boy go, Blood. It's me that you really want, and you know it. But of course, dear brother, still all who have opposed Baron Blood must die eventually, and I have sworn that those deaths shall come at my hands. Easy, Ken. Go limp. I'll catch you. I'm putting myself in a vulnerable position here, and Blood knows it. But Jackie's son isn't going to be injured if I can help it. Besides, in just a few moments, Baron Blood is the one who will be in a vulnerable position. And he turns to see the sunrise. No, not now. Not so soon. The accursed sun is rising. That burning orb's rays are anathema to me, such as me. I can resist the sun's ray for a time in this form, but my powers are greatly weakened. I must flee while there is still time. Cap, you must stop him. He mustn't escape. Don't worry, Lord Falsworth. He's not getting away that easily. There are at least 3 murders you have to answer for, Baron, not to mention your war crimes. And he goes to die for. I'll answer for nothing, Yankee fool. Gathering all his strength, Cap makes a great leap after the fleeing vampire. But the creature he grabs for no longer possesses the size or form of a man. With a flapping of leathern wings, the bat eludes Cap's grasp. And the Star-Spangled Avenger plummets from the upper story window. With a skill that would astound a champion gymnast, Cap suddenly twists about in midair, snagging hold of an outstretched tree limb, swinging himself around, and lands safely on the ground. Yet, even as he lands, his thoughts are not of himself or his narrow escape, but of his foe's surprising getaway. Incredible. Baron Blood has the full power of a vampire. I'd assumed that the treatments the Nazi surgeons gave him during the war to help him resist sunlight had canceled out any shape-changing abilities. It appears that I was wrong. Well, that's one mistake I won't make again. Our next encounter will be our last, Baron, one way or another. Dun, dun, dun. Cap, are you all right? What happened to Baron Blood? I'm fine, Ken. Just annoyed. As for the Baron, he's flown off out of sight, though probably not very far if I know him. Blood is a clever beast. I'm sure your mother's told you how he infiltrated Falworth's Manor during the war. What's all the blatant racket about? I wake up to hear people running down the halls, yelling like buskers. I look out in the front courtyard and I see hundreds of rats scurrying away. What's going on? Those rats were summoned by Baron Blood, Chapman. You've heard of Baron Blood, haven't you? He was a special Nazi agent during the war. He also happens to be a vampire, and after he disappeared, you showed up. Just where have you been, anyway? What? Are you accusing me of being a bleeding Nazi vampire? You're as daft as old Lord Falworth. But daft or not, if you're going to be pointing fingers, you better be ready for a fight. I got the better part of my education in the streets, and I don't take guff from anybody, not even from Captain Bloody America. I grew up in the streets myself, Joey, but I learned to fight from experts, and I've had years of combat experience. That puts me several steps ahead of any young art school tough with a nasty temper. What? Hey! I doubt very much that you're Baron Blood. You fold a little too easy, but vampires have been known to use mortal pawns. Ow! Watch it, Yank. You'll break my arm. I don't know anything about any vampires, honestly. Let him go, Cap. He's telling the truth. I've known Johnny for years, and I can vouch for him. He's just a sound sleeper. That's why he didn't show up until later. All right, Joey. I'll accept Ken's word that you're on the up and up, but watch your step. Come on, Jackie. We're calling on Scotland Yard. Blaping American. War hero or not, I'm starting to get just a little blade tired of the righteous Captain America, Kenny. You wouldn't be so down on the man if you'd seen what we went through this morning, Joey. Baron Bloods may sound like a bad fairy tale, but he's all too real. God help us. He's my great-uncle. You see, just before the First World War, my great-grandfather died, and Mother's father, as eldest son, became the new Lord Falworth. Grandfather's younger brother inherited but a small allotment and a great deal of bitterness. At any rate, the brothers set out to better his fortunes on the continent, eventually arriving in the remote sections of Romania known as Transylvania. There, in a crypt deep beneath an ancient castle, he found the resting place of the one he sought, the fabled lord of vampires, Dracula. In his mad ambition, he sought to attain power through control of the vampire lord. But he was not reckoned with Dracula's incredible hypnotic powers. Overcome by the vampire's stare, he dropped his protective cross and became yet another undead minion of Dracula. At his command, my great-uncle returned to England to wreak havoc on the homeland of Dracula's longtime enemies, the Harker family. And as the war broke out, he became a deadly agent in the service of the German Kaiser. He became Baron Blood. Between the world wars, the Baron dropped out of sight, eventually allying himself with a cause as evil as vampirism, Hitler's Third Reich. Returning to England during World War II, Baron Blood came back to Falworth Manor in the guise of one John Falworth, the son of grandfather's dear departed brother. Hello, Captain Jacqueline. Beautiful morning, what? Shortly thereafter, Mother nearly succumbed to the Baron's bite. Indeed, she would probably have become an undead herself were it not for the timely intervention of that wartime superhero team, the Invaders. Baron Blood was defeated in that battle, but at a terrible price. Grandfather's legs were crushed, leaving him a cripple for life. And Mother's life, was saved only by an emergency transfusion of blood from the android known as the Human Torch. Still and all, and out of that tragic battle was born a new super being, for the strange artificial blood of the Torch transformed Mother into the superfast Spitfire. Mother's speed faded with the passage of time, of course, and my Uncle Brian succeeded Grandfather as the second Union Jack. In fact, Brian was still semi-active as Union Jack up until his death in 1953. I think Grandfather would have liked for me to have become a third Union Jack, but my heart isn't into that sort of thing. I just don't see myself as the conquering hero type. Lord, Kenny, I knew your family had done a lot during the war, but I never dreamt that they were connected with the invaders. I guess the captain was right to read me out like he did, all things considered. Meanwhile, a few miles away, on the outskirts of the nearby village, a dark form hurriedly approaches an open cottage window and passes through, assuming once more the form of a man. Blast! I had hoped that the passage of the time had dulled the Yank's battle savvy. But if anything, he's become more formidable than ever. I shall have to rethink my plans for revenge. That shall have to wait. However, for now, it is important that I resume my protective disguise to better resist the power of the sun. With practiced movements, the undead creature slips on the specially constructed life mask and the padded undergarments, and gradually he assumes a more benevolent mind, so that moments later, when he answers a timid knock at his door, he has become a very different man. Hello, Dr. Cromwell. I'm sorry to bother you so early in the morning and all, but I'm still having them terrible dreams at night, and I feel so tired. Why, it's no bother at all, Jenny. After all, it's the lot of a doctor to help the troubled. Come right in. You're just in time for breakfast. Dun, dun, dun. It's the doctor. Bob, the doctor's Byrne blood.
Who would have guessed, Rick?
But he made Cap leave because he was talking about vampires.
I know. And he lost his daughter.
Wow.
Yeah.
Talk about a twist.
It is. Didn't see that coming.
Hours later, the main hall of Falsworth Manor becomes a beehive of activity as representatives of Scotland Yard assembled to map out strategy. Right. Now we must assume that the vampires hold up somewhere in this immediate facility. I agree, Inspector Sweeney. As you know, Byrne blood is at his weakest by day, and since he now seems to have full vampiric powers, he may even be forced to spend his days in a coffin. That's just a theory, of course. Whatever the case, a search for the surrounding area is definitely in order. It's urgent that we find blood before nightfall. I want to help in the search, Cap. I know the area, and well, I never thought I'd say this, but destroying Byrne blood is kind of a family duty. If Kenny wants in on this, then so do I, if you'll have me, Captain. All right. We can use all the manpower we can muster for this. They've practically forgotten I'm here. Byrne blood is my brother and my enemy. But time has stolen this battle from me. If only I could stand. If only Union Jack could live again. And so, while Lord Falsworth sits helplessly by, the search begins for a man long undead. A crew of specially trained law enforcers scour the caves at the edge of the Falsworth estate. How are there specially trained law enforcers? Like, they're specially trained to go after vampires?
Yeah, they have a cross.
Oh, of course. Okay.
And they're wearing their special garlic cologne.
Yeah. Even as Cap and the inspector question the townspeople of the nearby village. And you're sure you've never heard nor seen anything unusual of late? Sorry, we can't help you, Mr. Sweeney. Aside from them strange murders, everything's been quiet as death itself. No stone is left unturned. Every cemetery is checked for signs of recent disinterment. Every vicar is consulted and warned of the vampire's suspected presence. A house-to-house search is instituted, but everywhere the results are the same. Byrne blood is nowhere to be found. By late afternoon, 2 young volunteers, frustrated by the fruitless search, retire to their favorite pub to mull things over. So you boys haven't turned up a thing. I think you'd be grateful. I know I'd be scared to death if I were to come across a real vampire. I did come across him, Jenny, just last night. He's a ghastly enough sight, to be sure, but even a vampire can be defeated. Right, Joey? If you say so, Kenny. Me, I'm still getting used to the idea that such a creature could exist. I say, Jenny, have you been unwell? You seem so pale and jittery. Oh, it's just a touch of anemia, Kenneth. Dr. Cromwell's been treating me, but I can't seem to shake it. Well, listen then. If you aren't better soon, I'll see about getting you in to see a specialist in London. I can't have the woman I'm going to marry be ill. Go on with you now, Kenneth. You know that your mother would never stand for you marrying a commoner. I'm just... Oh, and she faints. Jenny! Catch her quick, Kenny! Within moments. Put her on the cot in the back room, lads. I'll go get the smelling salts. Praise the Lord. She's coming around, but her breathing's so shallow. I'm taking this blasted choker off her. Cool, Kenny, look. Her neck. And what is it, Bob? What's on her neck?
God, it's the telltale sign of a vampire's bite, Rick.
There's 2 holes there. Meanwhile, several thousand miles to the west, in the section of metropolitan New York known as Brooklyn Heights. Specifically, in the apartment studio Captain America maintains in his identity of Steve Rogers, 2 women are busily involved in a bit of custodial maintenance. Bob, what's going on here?
Wow. It looks like Mrs. Kappelbaum and Bernadette are cleaning the hooch.
Without Steve's permission?
Yes.
They're just in there, just cleaning?
Cleaning. Wow.
There, that takes care of the vacuuming. It was so good of you to offer help me look after Steve's place while he's gone, Bernie. It's no trouble, Mrs. Kappelbaum. Actually, the place is surprisingly clean when you consider how erratic and absent-minded Steve seems to be. Really? I always thought of Steve as being fairly level-headed. And listen, you call me Anna, or I'll start calling you Miss Rosenthal. All right, Anna. You know, Stephen's such a nice young man. You'd make a lovely couple. Now, wait a minute. I like Steve, but there's nothing between us that's at all serious. I mean, who can have a relationship with a man who suddenly drops everything to fly to England and doesn't even have the decency to call? Hello, Steve Rogers' residence. No, I'm sorry. He's not here right now. No, he's in England. I'm telling you this because you're a complete stranger, and I figured I'd just let everybody know his private business. And then his place is, probably open for robbery. No, he didn't say where he could be reached. I was hoping that he'd... What? No, I'm just a friend. Well then, when your friend, Steve, gets back, you could tell him that Carmine called. Carmine from the plumber ad agency. And I had a job for him. Emphasize the had. After all, he's not that good an artist. Oh, Anna, that was Steve's art director calling. And I'm afraid he just lost a big assignment. Now, dear, don't fret. Stephen can straighten everything out when he returns. And remember, he's a freelance artist. I'm sure there'll be plenty of other assignments for a man so bright and resourceful. More than enough to support a wife, maybe a family. I wonder if a June wedding would be too soon. At that very moment, across the wide Atlantic, Cap returns to Falsworth Manor on the run. Nearly a whole day of searching, and we found nothing. I have to call Scotland Yard for more manpower. I want the entire manor surrounded by an armed guard tonight. Otherwise, Baron Blood is sure to get at the Falsworths. I wonder if Ken and Joey have turned up anything. They haven't checked in yet. Your search has been in vain, hasn't it, Steve? I'm not surprised. My brother was devious, even before he died. Huh? Lord Falsworth, sir, pardon me, but what the devil do you think you're doing? Isn't it obvious? Union Jack has been Baron Blood's arch foe since the First World War. I intended to become Union Jack once again, if only for one night. I'm sure my brother will be unable to resist such a tempting target. I know I stand little chance of overcoming him, but at least I'll draw him out of hiding. I leave it to you to end my misery, should he succeed in making a vampire out of me. And he's dressing as Union Jack. He's, of course, sitting in the wheelchair. He puts on the mask. Sir, this is totally unnecessary. I assure you that we can protect. Protect whom? Protect me from my brother while others needlessly die? No, I'm an old man who's outlived his usefulness. But I could still be of some help, as bait, and neither you nor anyone else shall deny me that role. And just then Jacqueline's walking by. I haven't heard that kind of power in my father's voice since Brian died. I'd almost forgotten the man he once was. Perhaps he's right. No, what am I thinking? He can no more be Union Jack than I could be Spitfire again. Too many years have passed for both of us. All right. I call shenanigans here, Bob. I think this is kind of poor craftsmanship. There's no way that she's walking by the bedroom of Lord Falsworth, and then she goes to the next open room and there's a Spitfire costume hanging on the wall. Like, if she has no intention to ever be Spitfire again, why is it just randomly hanging on a wall?
Well, I don't know. Maybe it's her I Love Me wall. I mean, Cap has his wall with all his stuff, right? I mean, we can't see the whole wall. We just see the part of the wall where the Spitfire costume is displayed on the wall. But, you know.
All right. You're being very generous.
If I was a superhero, I'd be hanging it on my wall.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'd be walking by it every day and going, oh, I wish I could fit in that.
I know, right?
I really need to do something about that. I'm going to fit in that again. Yeah.
You want to hear something crazy?
Yeah.
So back when I was late teens, I used to have a boogie board.
Uh-huh.
You know what a boogie board is?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So, and I used to, off the Delaware beaches, I used to go out and, boogie board. And sometimes it was later in the season, get a little cold. And I had flippers and I had a spring suit. Do you know what a spring suit is?
Is that like it's like a lightweight wetsuit?
Exactly. It's a short sleeve wetsuit. So it's a wetsuit, but the sleeves are short and the legs are short.
Yeah.
So it goes down to your knees and elbows.
Yeah.
Right. And it's one of those things where it's really form fitting. And then there's a zipper on the back. And that's it. And it's like made of like rubber, like it's like a real, material. And then there's this long cord on the zipper on the back, because that's the only way you can do it without help, is like, to pull it up. I can still fit in it.
If I don't see pictures, it ain't true.
All right. All right. I can do that for you.
All right.
I could do that for you. But no, I'm very proud to say that I can still wear stuff from college.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Good for you, man. Good for you.
So that would be my problem. I would hang my spring suit on the wall and walk by it every day.
Yes. You should.
Uh-huh. Now I just had the hair to go with it. Father, have you taken total leave of your senses? The very idea of you masquerading as Union Jack is ludicrous. Now, Jackie, don't interrupt me, Steve. He needs to hear this. Father, you simply must start acting your age. The war is over, long over. But here you are, still trying to fight it. For you have to face Baron Blood would be suicidal, and I won't stand for it. Now you listen to me, Jacqueline. That bloody vampire is a Falsworth, and the Falsworths have always taken responsibility for their black sheep. Even Kenneth understands that. I'll see Baron Blood vanquished if it's the last thing I do. And he falls over, clutching his chest. Lord Falsworth, Father, my heart. Once again, the manor becomes alive with frantic activity. And when the family doctor is finally summoned to the aged hero's bedchambers, I'm sorry about the mask, Dr. Cromwell, but the lordship insisted. Given the events of the past few days, that's quite understandable. At least the cloth is porous enough that it shouldn't interfere with his breathing. I'm glad you at least gave him his medication. He seems to be resting well enough. But that's not Dr. Cromwell. That's actually Baron Blood in disguise, Bob.
Yes, and he's very attentive, doctor.
I think he's waking now. Why don't you and Lady Crichton wait outside? This examination could take a while. Of course, Doctor. Come on, Jackie. And then he slams the door behind them, and it clicks with a lock. But look at that look on his face, Bob.
He has a somewhat of a leering look, yes.
It's a maniacal smile. And now that we have some privacy, let us get on with our examination, dear brother. Yes, you waking fool. Your devoted doctor of these past few years has been Baron Blood. Oh, how I've longed for this moment when you would be totally at my mercy. I've been tempted so many times in the past months, but the waiting, the prolonging of your wretched, pitiful life has been worth it. And he rips off his masks. But you were defeated. Your remains locked away in the Tower of London. How? How was I resurrected? There was a bit of luck. In recent years, Dracula was again in this land, brother. One of his mortal pawns learned of my existence and pulled the stake from my heart, restoring me. That pawn was the real Dr. Cromwell. He soon became my pawn as well. I used him to gain certain information and knowledge, and when his usefulness was over, I ended his life and that of his daughter, taking his place as the kindly country doctor. As Dr. Cromwell, it was simple to sustain myself with a few anemic patients, though I must admit to wakening to my baser compulsions of late, and committing the so-called slasher murders. But I was careful to kill my victims before draining their blood. I shall not be so careful with you, dear brother. I shall slowly drain your blood, and you shall join the ranks of the undead, remaining old and feeble throughout eternity. I don't think so, chum. Not so long as the dirk of good British sterling silvers are by my side. Ha! And he does, and it's not. Who is it? He doesn't look old, but he has the silver dagger that he.
Yeah, he's moving his legs.
No, it's not possible. You're old, feeble. There's that word again, Bob. And he gets kicked in the face. Wrong again, Baron. I'm more than strong enough to handle the likes of you. Until the sun goes down, your strength isn't half so supernatural, now is it? Now I see a third man has dared assume the role of Union Jack. Cretinous fool, I am still mighty enough to destroy you as easily as I shall drain the life from the original. And he picks up the wardrobe and he goes to toss it. He's lifting that wardrobe as though it was nothing. At the last possible instant, Union Jack ducks beneath the hurtling oaken cabinet and fires his weapon, Bob.
But damn!
You have a lot more on target than that to stop me, Baron. And I'll have to learn to shoot better, too. Blast, I'm not used to the kick from this old Webley. But then...
Crash!
Cap comes busting through the door of this shield. UJ, I heard you shot. Did you get him? I can answer that question, Captain. He did not, nor shall he get a second chance to fire his silver-jacketed bullets. Hey! And he knocks the gun out of his hand. I don't know how you managed to see through my deception, but I shall find out easily enough once you are again in my power. Tell it to the chaplain, Baron. Crikey, what a kick! You made a serious mistake in your work as Dr. Cromwell. You were feeding off the blood of a young lady whom Ken Crichton was quite fond of. She should live now, no thanks to you. Anyway, the boys were able to get word back to me just after we put through the emergency call to the doctor. which gave us just enough time to set you up with Union Jack 3. Prepared or not, you'll never defeat me. Never! Would you be willing to put a wager on that, Baron? UJ, look out. He's turning back on you. Ha! You ally yourself with amateurs, you Yankee fool. I have more than enough power to evade this stripling. I need not assume the form of a bat to get away from your insipid trap. But know you this, Baron Blood shall return, and when I do, there shall be no mercy shown, none. All shall die from my vampiric bite. Yes, when I return, Falsworth Manor will echo with the cries of the newly undead. And he's flying away, Bob. But faster by far than the gliding Baron Blood is the whizzing shield of Captain America. Like a thing alive, it rockets across the great hall, ricocheting back at just the angle Cap calculated to drive the undead monster from the air before bouncing back to its owner's grasp. That accursed shield again. When I'm through with you, you'll never throw it or anything else again. I doubt that. Let me put the lie into him, Cap. This blade shall work just as well as the wooden stake through that heart. Baron Blood's only response is a bestial snarl and a springing bound which once again takes the youthful Union Jack by surprise. Oh! Blazes, I was afraid of this. Union Jack is too inexperienced at this sort of thing. I have to distract the vampire or Jack's a dead man. Baron, over here. And he pulls down the curtains. With one powerful yank, Cap rips loose the heavy curtains, letting the late afternoon sun flood into the chamber. Now! Not again. You'll not be saved by the sun again. Like a bat out of the very depths of Hades, Baron Blood launches himself at his star-spangled tormentor. You have made a most grievous error. This is not the light of a rising sun, but that of a setting one. Soon it shall be twilight, and until then I can endure the pain. In that case, I'll just have to stop you before sunset, Baron. And believe me, I will. I must. I've pledged myself to the preservation of life and liberty, whereas you represent nothing but death and decay. And that makes you my enemy, mister. Yes, we are enemies, and you are a fool. In the end, death wins. Death always wins. Got to get up and help Cap, but I'm so groggy. Blood nearly throttled the life out of me. And so Cap's on top of Baron Blood, and he's punching down, but Baron Blood keeps clawing at his chainmail, actually ripping his chainmail, Bob. Cap struggles valiantly, but he can feel Baron Blood's strength slowly growing as the sun sinks in the west. And he knows it is only a matter of time before the monster wins. It is then that he recalls Lord Falsworth's words. There is only one way to totally destroy a vampire. And in that moment, he knows what he must do. But he's struggling, Bob. These two panels, actually these three panels, show Cap's face struggling, and then it zooms in more, and it zooms in more. And we see the angst in Steve's face. And he says, no. Oh, no. The deed is horrible to comprehend, but he knows that he has no other recourse. And he pulls his shield up, and he comes down, decapitating Baron Blood. Bloody. And it makes a noise, Bob. And then the champion can only look on as the human facade of Baron Blood melts away, and the monster is revealed for what he truly is. It is a victory, to be sure, but it is not a clean victory. Joey, it's all over, Kenny. Thank heaven above, it's over. And so he pulls off his mask, and it's his friend, Joey. I'm just glad he was able to convince Cap to let me play Union Jack. You'd have never survived his attack. You always were the stronger of us too, Joe. Yeah, right. Mother, I don't know if you should see this, I saw the Warsaw Ghetto and the Nazi death camps, Kenneth. I'll hold up. But Cap, the man's all right. He just had to do his job, and it wasn't a pleasant one. Lay him alone for a moment, okay? And we do. We see Cap got his right hand up against the doorway and his head, his face in his left palm as he leans over. And you can tell he's very distraught. Hours later, out on the moors, the last remains of the undead beast, which has been Byrne blood, are consumed to the flames. And the menace of the Nazi vampire is ended for all time. It's done, grandfather. Byrne blood will never threaten anyone again. Did you hear, father? Kenneth said, I'm afraid he can't hear you, Jackie. What? Oh, Cap, he's gone. It must have been his heart. It finally gave out. He was a good man, Jackie. The best. And he went to his reward, knowing that his brother's evil had been overcome at last. And then we cut to the last page, which is a big splash page. And there's an image of Union Jack in the background. And then we see Cap and the Walsworth family and Joey wheeling the body away. And there's a sunrise in the back. Once there was a mighty empire, whose lands reached across the globe, and upon which the sun never set. Strong it was, and powerful, and never did it meet defeat at the hands of any other nation. Time passed, and bit by bit, the empire was whittled away, until it was but a fraction of its former size. Today the empire is all but gone, and some say that the glory and the grandeur of the mighty realm, that England, is gone forever. But the people of that fabled land live on, and they are still a good people, a great people, a people possessed of all the strength, might, and indomitable will which forged that empire of days gone by. And as long as that people endure, as long as a few of those valiant hearts and minds and souls persist, then shall the spirit of Union Jack live on. And then it says this issue is dedicated to Frank Robbins, who is the creative artist and storytelling wizard and the man who first drew Union Jack.
And there you have it.
Yep. And there you go. That's the story. I'm a little surprised it says dedicated to Frank Robbins. So, that usually is something that's saved for people who have passed, right? Like you get the impression like, a person's passed, but Frank Robbins is alive at this point and it will be for the next 12 to 13 years. So that's interesting. But yeah, what'd you think, Bob?
It's a great story, Rick. There's a lot of twists and turns. The art's great. The storytelling is great. The dialogue's great. And it's great to see Byrne blood. Well, it was great to see Byrne blood again. One of the more interesting villains from the Invaders era. So,
yeah. So let's get to the part we said we were going to talk about, right? Because we've talked in the past about whether or not Cap kills, and I know sometimes we point to this, right? We'll say, "Oh, well, he killed the ultimatum agent. He killed Byrne blood." What are your thoughts on that, Bob? I have mine, but I want to hear yours.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really put this in the same category as the ultimatum agent because, as was pointed out in the story, Byrne blood was already the undead. He was dead. So, is it any different than dispatching a machine or, maybe one of Arnim Zola's creations? I think he's beyond redemption at this point. There's no coming back from where the junior Falsworth was by this point. So did he kill him? I don't think so. He was already dead.
I'm going to lean in the same direction. I can you kill something that's not alive? Again, I guess then we get into some sort of philosophical debate, what is live? Do you need to have a soul to be alive? because obviously he doesn't have a soul, right? Because, he's a vampire, and theoretically vampires are not supposed to have souls. So, you can get into a philosophical debate, but I'm gonna side with you here. I think, even though it weighed on Captain's, weighed heavily on his heart to do that. I think Stern and Byrne painstakingly made sure to focus on the fact that he didn't take this lightly, and it really bothered him to do this. But at the end of the day, I think he made the right choice.
I think so too. I mean, I think one could like overplay the hand, right? I mean, we know that Steve Rogers doesn't kill because I think he always believes that there's a chance of redemption, right?
Mm-hmm.
Somebody can always change, and all along the way, we have seen people change, right? We've seen bad guys become good guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it is possible, and in this case, I don't think it's possible. I don't think you come back from being a vampire. I'm not familiar. Maybe there are stories of
apparently you didn't never watched Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel.
right. I didn't. But you see him wrestling with it, right? Because that is sort of baked into his character. Even though I think on some level clearly he understood that Baron Blood was not coming back from this, and that there was only one option at this point. And I think, this is what presents this character as interesting, right? Baron Blood is an interesting antagonist for Cap in this story because of that reality that Cap has this belief system, but Baron Blood is beyond that belief system at this point. And I can't think of any other character off the top of my head that same sort of paradox could be brought to the fore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, all good points. I would agree with you on that. I enjoyed the story as well. I thought it was good. Kind of reminds you a little bit of a murder mystery, right? I'm like, they threw, some red herrings out there with Joey, like, oh, here's this stranger that comes in, and kind of play that up. Certainly, I think Stern does a good job with, you don't guess it's the doctor, right? Because, you see this character in the very, very beginning of this story, and typically, that wouldn't be the villain. Right. So that was kind of like threw you a little bit. And then, of course, when he says, I don't believe in vampires, and, got upset, so I thought that was a good job. Little twist there, of trying to throw the reader off. So I enjoyed that. And the art was top notch. So let's get into that, Bob. What I think you go first this time.
Oh.
What is your favorite panel?
Well, I think I'm going to have to go with page 9 of nope. I'm going to take that back. I'm going to go with page 19 of issue 253, and it's that panel where Cap is he's initially, it looks like he's asleep, and Baron Blood sneaks up on him, and then he pulls back the covers, and he's got his shield, and he smacks old Baron Blood right in the face. I love that.
A good
panel.
one.
It's great. You can almost feel like the action in that one, and that the reverberation of the shield, vibrating off Baron Blood's face. Great panel.
It is a good one.
What about you?
I know the owner of the page before that, the one where he's that gargoyle and he's sliding down the wall. So I'm still searching for a John Byrne Captain America page. One of these days. It's on my bucket list for 23. So my favorite panel, I'm going to go with the same issue 253, and I'm going to go with page 4, panel 4. I am a sucker for Cap's shield ricocheting, and I I love seeing Cap's shield ricochet. And so it's the one where the guy's running down the alleyway and we see the back of Cap and we see his arms throwing and you see the clang, clang. That I don't know. I like the perspective, right?
Yeah.
Like, we've seen Cap throw his shield before many times. A lot of times it's from the side. But this perspective is pretty cool. So I like that, and seeing how it's going after and getting in front of the guy who's running away. I like it.
I do. And I like how it foreshadows that same sort of shield throw to knock Baron Blood back.
Yeah, where it goes in front of him.
At the very end of the arc. So
yeah, I thought the same thing. Yeah.
Very neat.
All right. T-shirt worthy. I go first on this.
Ooh, okay.
I gotta say, Bob, I'm gonna go with 254, page 20, the bottom two panels.
Ooh.
Where Cap's over top of Baron Blood.
Yeah.
And he picks up his shield and then he throws it down. Now, I didn't say this when I was going through the story, but we see the silhouette,
right,
the shadow on the wall. So we don't actually see him decapitate him. We see the shadow of the shield coming down, and we see the reaction of Joey as
Union Jack. Yeah.
As Union Jack. Yeah. So, which I thought was a really artistic way of doing that. I thought that was a really good job of, keeping it within the code, comic book authority code, right?
Yeah.
But also at the same time, you're showing two different things. You're showing the action done, and then you're showing the reaction to the action.
Yeah.
And it's all in the same panel, which I thought was really cool. So I would say those two panels, I would like to see that on a T-shirt.
Oh, nice. Nice.
How about you?
Well, I was going to go with that it was about a half page panel on page 9 that shows, the Invaders with the Invaders era villains, because I'd love to have an Invaders T-shirt. I don't have one, and I'm a big fan of those stories. But I reflected upon that, and I decided I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go with I'm going to go with an unusual pick. And so I think it's page 6. I think it's like 2 or 3 pages before that, and it's the one of Steve, where he's changing on the roof. And he's got the shirt half on, half off, and he's kind of got a 3/4 turn looking off, and he says, "Because it's about time that Steve Rogers enjoyed a night on the town."
I like that one.
That would make an awesome T-shirt, right?
It really would. It really would.
And that would be the T-shirt you'd wear out on the town.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Especially if your name's Steve Rogers.
Yeah, that works.
We have a Steve Rogers who listens.
Yeah. Definitely wear that
out. That's cool. I like that.
All right. What about your time capsule, Rick?
My time capsule is going to be when Cap and Byrne are on the couch.
Oh.
And he gets a call from Jarvis.
Mm-hmm.
And he got a cable from his Lord Fallsworth, right? And I just think, a cable, really?
Right.
Like that's totally dating it, right? You might as well just set a telegraph, I mean, like, he got a cable wired, so I thought that was very much a dated thing in this. Otherwise, I think this story could be read at any time.
Sure.
There's not too many things that date that, but that was one of them. How about you? What's going in your time capsule?
I do like the call out to Old Calcutta, which folks probably would have understood more back then than now. Now we have all kinds of things that go far beyond Old Calcutta. But I'm going to go with the Concorde flight that Cap took, because the Concorde only operated between, I think, like 1976 and 2000, and as we know, the Air France flight crashed in 2000, and it was the whole Concorde fleet was discontinued after that. So that, only had what, 14, I don't know, 24 years.
Yeah, way to narrow it down.
Yeah, the Concorde was operating, but at that time it was the height of like speed and luxury. You could fly from Paris to Dulles in roughly 2.5 hours. So it was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Which, as I said earlier, my dad, that was his dream, to fly on the Concorde. So back then, to take the Concorde was like the epitome of luxury.
Yeah.
And that just doesn't exist anymore.
Yep. Very cool. Very cool. Well, I enjoyed doing this. We only have like 2 one-issue stories left to do the Stern Byrne era. So we gotta pace ourselves, Bob. Maybe we'll do this another year. but let's talk about what we are going to do, Bob. So next episode, we are going to be going fast forward 2 years. That's right. We're going from 1981 to 1983. Normally, we like to mix things up, but you know what? I mentioned before about a special birthday coming up for one of a longtime Captain America creators, and one other than Sal Buscema is going to have a birthday coming up.
Well, we need to celebrate that. I got to tell you, Sal is probably, I'd say Sal's probably my favorite Cap artist.
Yeah.
So yeah, we definitely got to do something for Sal.
Yeah. Well, his birthday is January 26th. So this next episode is going to come out on January 25th. So what better way to celebrate him? And we figured we would do Sal Buscema's last Captain America story that he ever did the interior art for. And that is going to be Captain America 285. Now you may say, well, all right, well, what else is special about that issue? Well, J.M. DeMatteis wrote it, and it is a story featuring the villain Porcupine. So you might remember this cover. It's a beautiful Mike Zeck cover where Cap is running on a rooftop, and up above him is Porcupine showering down needles on him as he's running and putting his shield up. It's a really cool cover. But this one also features Jeff Mace. Now, Bob, just real quickly, just remind everybody who Jeff Mace is.
Yeah, well, he was the third Captain America, right? After William Naslund perished fighting Adam. Then Adam 2, I should say. Jeff Mace picked up the shield and the uniform and became Captain America, and continued serving as Captain America until around 1949. So
yeah, and he was also formerly the Patriot, right?
Indeed, yes.
Yeah. So this is a special heartwarming tale about Jeff Mace. And it's, again, art by Sal Buscema. So we will have that next episode. So come back for that for episode 120. Then episode 121, which is the first Wednesday of the month of February. We always have a guest during that episode. We're not going to tell you exactly who that's going to be just yet. But that's going to be a real fun interview there. That comes out February 1st. Episode 122, we're going to kick off, Bob, our long tail story, meaning this is such a long story that we don't want to break it up in just 1 or 2 episodes. We're going to actually break this up. So we're going to go to Castaway in Dimension Z. Now that was volume 7, which was written by Rick Remender and drawn by John Romita Jr., inks by Scott Hanna. And that's the one where Cap finds himself stuck in Dimension Z, which is Z for Zola. And we're going to do the first 10 issues of that volume, which is the complete Castaway in Dimension Z story. And we're going to do that on the second Wednesday of every month for the next 10 months. So that'll be fun.
That will be fun. And it's worth doing. And I owe it to you, Rick, because, I read that when it came out, and I wasn't enamored with it. I didn't, it didn't hold my attention.
Right.
And it wasn't until you encouraged, not just me, but you encouraged other members of the Facebook group to read it more carefully, dig into it a little bit, that I went back and I reread it, and I found that I really enjoyed it the second time around. So I'm excited to do this, because I think there's a lot of folks who maybe haven't given it a second read, and they need to.
Yeah, I'm falling in the same category. I didn't love it when I first read it. And I think because too, it was such a vast difference between following Ed Brubaker for all those years, right?
Yeah.
It was a different type of story, which I think they had to do, because, you can't follow Ed Brubaker and try to do an Ed Brubaker story. So I am looking forward to covering this with our listeners as well. So that'll be a lot of fun. All right, Bob, my voice is gone, and I don't want to have to do a British accent again for quite some time. And thank you very much for not doing your pip pip diddly doo.
There it goes. There goes. Hey, I do want to point out though, that last splash page in 254, that indeed is Union Jack number 3, and it was the first appearance of
yes,
the current Union Jack. So,
well, I don't know if that was the issue. Definitely is the first appearance of Union Jack 3.
Right.
No doubt. I don't know if that last splash was, right. It could have been an homage to the fallen Falsworth who just passed,
true,
because here he is up in the sky, right.
Yeah.
With the clouds and the sunbeams and everything.
It's a good point.
I that's how I interpreted it. But
who knows?
It could have been, your stupid way.
Yeah. Well, who can argue with that? Okay.
Right. No, I know. It could totally have been that way. Absolutely. And that's the beauty of art, right? We all have our interpretations.
Some are right, some are wrong. Yeah.
Well, Bob, it was fun. It was fun wrapping cap with you.
It sure was. Let's do it again.
All right. Blah, blah, blah. All right. He's Bob Lucius. I'm Rick Verbanis, and you have been listening to another episode of the Captain America Comic Book Fans Podcast. Tick,